Hey everybody, we are talking about multi-track editing and specifically editing drum set, drums. Could be any instrument that's got more than one mic open. Drums are a great one to work on because there's so many tracks, so many mics, but also we get to work on some rhythmic editing ideas. And so let's get started. I've got it up on the computer here. This is our session from class. And in my session here, the drums are all of these pink tracks that we see. So I'm going to back up a little bit and just reiterate some kind of nuts and bolts things. First of all, I want to make sure that the drums are part of a mix edit group. So I'm going to click on the kick drum and then shift click on the overhead right so that I'm selecting all of the drum tracks. Then I'll right click, and where it says group selected tracks, I'm going to click on that. I've already done this, so if you look up here under groups, there is actually a group that's called drums, and it affects mixing. If I move one fader, they all move relative to each other. But more importantly for today, it affects how things behave when we edit the drums, so that if I make a selection, you'll notice that it does it to all the drum tracks the same way. And I'll go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger here so that we can see a little bit easier. It also means that if I cut something, let's say that I double click and I cut, it's doing it to all. And if I move that edit, it does it to all the tracks the same way. This is really important because if we don't do this and we end up moving one of these tracks independently from the others, it's going to create timing and phase issues. And if you do that accidentally and don't know where it happened, it can be very frustrating to try to get back to having all the tracks lined up and sounding correct. So it's really important that when we edit drum set, we have the tracks grouped so that everything happens as a group. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, I could go ahead and trim the beginning here. I think there's probably a count off. Let's check it out. Maybe not. All right, so I was just listening to the click and I just came in. A lot of times, if the drummer is recording with other musicians, then you'll hear them count in the tune. In this case, I was just playing to a MIDI track, so there was nobody to count in except for myself. Therefore, there's no count in. So I could trim this right before that first entrance. And again, you can make these waveforms look bigger. Sometimes it's easier to see if there's some low-level information happening on the track. So I don't see anything. It looks pretty good. So I'm going to just drag this to the right. And you can see I've already actually created a little fade in right here. So this will take us from digital black, meaning just zeros, no information whatsoever, to that first entrance. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about rhythmic editing and understand that the goal, at least for this particular track, is not to quantize the drums. We're not trying to make them perfectly sit on the grid. We want to retain some of that human, feeling. And so being a human, I can't play perfectly to the grid. I'm not capable of it. So I'm going to push and pull, and sometimes I rush when I play a fill, or sometimes a certain note is a little bit early or late. So usually what I do, this is just me, is I go through and I listen to the track and I use my ears. And if something feels like it's being pushed or pulled or a little bit off, then I'll go and kind of massage that phrase or that note. But I do use the grid lines as a reference, but I'm not trying to line up every note that I play on the grid. Now, in some types of music, maybe that's appropriate, where you would literally cut up the drums, go to every transient, and literally line everything up on a grid. But even if that was appropriate for the style of music, I still contend that it wouldn't necessarily be the right move. So but that's just my opinion. So let me listen a little bit, and I'll do some editing kind of just naturally as I would do it on the fly, and just kind of let you watch how I work. And then I want to talk specifically about how I'm going to fix some of these edit moments, the crossfades where there are, cuts in the track, to make sure that we don't have any funny clips, pops, or artifacts from the editing. So here we go. Cool. Nice fill, but I'm just a little early on this down right here, right? So I just kind of got a little bit ahead. I don't mind that it's a little bit ahead generally, but this one is a lot more ahead than the other, like right here and right here. So I'm just going to double click, and then again, the keyboard shortcut, at least on this one is, well, I don't have a Macintosh keyboard, but it's the Control-Alt or whatever the two keys are over here. You'll figure it out. When I press them, you should get that. I guess it's whatever, the two keys that are right next to each other next to the spacebar. So check it out. Now I can just move this waveform, and I'm going to make it kind of the same amount of ahead that you see over here and that you see over here, okay? So I've moved that downbeat to the right, and then hitting the X will give us crossfades. Now check this out. Because I moved that piece to the right, it means that the old performance is there, and if I move my crossfade, you can see where it happened, right? Look, there it is right there. So I don't want that, because if I leave that in, we'll get kind of a double attack, and it sounds weird. So basically what I like to do is open up this crossfade, and I move to the right until I see that initial transient, and I'm going to just go before that transient. And a little tip here is that I typically, on this side of the edit, will make the fade in logarithmic. It just tends to kind of smooth out as one track is kind of descending and the other one is coming up, kind of fills in some of the void so I don't hear a dip in volume at that edit point. Over here, because we moved it to the right, it's not a problem, because we can go right up against that next transient and you won't hear anything. It's a nice smooth transition. Let's check this out. Nice. So now it's like sitting deeper in the pocket, and I'm really landing on the one kind of with the band, so to speak. All right, cool, right there. So feels pretty good. Here, the fill is just a little bit, it's kind of pushing a little too much for me. So I'm going to do the same thing. Where am I going to grab it? I'm going to grab it here. And it's okay by the time we get to this. Like, that's kind of the right amount of ahead. But this figure right here where I go to the tom just feels a little rushed to me. So again, same thing. I cut it. And I'm just going to move this a little bit to the right. Then I'm going to expand this crossfade. I'm going to do the logarithmic, and I'm going to look for that transient. Right there it is. Can you see it? Let me zoom in so it's easier to see. Here it comes, right there. See that? I don't want that. So I'm moving my crossfade to the left. And on this one, I'm just going to move this right before the downbeat. So we have a nice, clean edit. And then this whole phrase is actually ahead. So sometimes I can just take that movement that I applied to the previous lick, and now watch. I can take my edit point and just move it to the right. Look at that. Ooh, nice. All that stuff moves over until I'm kind of back on track, which looks to me like not yet. Maybe right about there. Right? So now I've taken this whole phrase including that fill, and into the groove, and I'm just massaging it a little bit to the right. And if I wanted to, I could even, like this figure, even still is pretty far ahead. So let's just take that one note. It's a kick drum mostly. And whoops, I'm pushing the wrong keys. And just massage it to the right a little bit more. Crossfade. All right, let's check it out. Where's that transient? There it is, right there. So we want to get in before that transient, and then we're going to move this one right before the down of that note. Let's back up and let's check it out in context. That feels good. Let's go back to the top. Right, so it's just sitting a little deeper in the pocket. It's just kind of lining up a little bit more with the band or with the click. So let me go to a different section where I think I started playing kind of a backbeat groove. Cool right there. It's cool. It's just, it's kind of getting a little bit lazy. And I can see even going back to this subdivision, like this is right on the down, and right here I'm a little lazy on the time. So let's go between there, and let's just massage this little chunk a little bit more so that we're lined up on the grid. It's not perfect, but I don't want the energy to drop off. So I'm pushing it just a little bit to the left here. And now that I'm going to the left, the part that I want to watch out for is actually going to be over here now. So here's the, see that? There's the transient that was there before, and we want to make sure we don't get that double downbeat. So I'm moving it to the left, and let me go back and check this out. Nice. I must have been making up for lost time, because here now I'm ahead. And, you know, this is kind of how it goes. It's like we kind of push, we pull. There's some drummers out there that have superb time. Apparently, I'm not one of them. That's okay. So I'm just going to massage ever so slightly. Just pull this a little bit to the right. And now it probably feels a little bit better. And if you want, sometimes I will wait and do my sort of cleanup of these crossfades later. Like if I get into a flow state where I'm kind of working and feeling it. God, it feels good. It's amazing how just a little bit of nudge really just tightens everything up. Good. So that's kind of the process. Just going through using my ears and sometimes even closing my eyes and seeing what kind of stands out to me. Like if I'm in time with it, if I'm feeling the groove, does a note kind of like, whoa, feel like it doesn't belong? Is it a little draggy? Is it a little low energy? Or is it, you know, too much in front? And then I just go and massage things back and forth. Some people like to cut and paste drum parts. I don't really like to do that so much. I think there's a flow to playing a drum track from the top to the bottom. So I prefer to go through and just edit the whole drum track from top to bottom, as opposed to, you know, kind of copying and pasting sections in it. To me, that feels a little artificial. Now, if I do something really terribly heinous and it's just a really bad chunk of performance, and otherwise the take is good, then sure, I might go in and replace a bad piece with a not so bad piece. But generally, I try not to do that. So I hope this is helpful. Create that group. Make sure that you are moving the drums together as a group. Go in and listen and massage things a little bit, and then make sure that your crossfades don't allow you to hear any kind of funny editing business. And the last thing I'll say with regard to that is that I like to listen to the drum tracks in solo just to make sure I don't hear anything funny. So let's zoom in, listen to the beginning in solo. Sounds good. I don't hear any funny sort of drop of volume. There's no double accents or double transients. So I think we're off to a good start. Hopefully this helps. Do your best, and we'll see you in class.